Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Hope everybody is doing well. Please do subscribe both channels, EEARTS and Evolutionary Energy Arts, to get access to all the videos. We are also on Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. And then, of course, we might as well, while we're here, thank our Patreons for their support, and also those that follow us on Ko-Fi. Ko-Fi, you could also do monthly support for the channel or just one-time support. And do check out Medicinal Foods. There is a link on every video up at the top. Use coupon code EEA. It does give you a discount and it supports the channel as well. And then to learn more about us, evolutionaryenergyarts.com. So happy summer solstice, guys.
Happy summer solstice, hooray!
As we see, revelers gather, celebrate summer solstice at sunrise at Stonehenge Stone Circle. Yeah, Stonehenge, and there is the line of thinking that Stonehenge is actually bunk, and actually it's something that was put together not too distant future. Again, all the world is a stage.
It really, really is, but even regardless of when they put it together, it still has some pretty cool alignments with the stars.
Yeah, and today is the longest day of the year. This is the day where the sun is at its strongest, so to speak. And again, this all makes me think about a time when things were more balanced, as this world is not a balanced world, as the earth hasn't been in a state of balance for thousands of years. And there was a time, according to legends, when the moon wasn't here and when the weather was perfect, calm, tranquil. It was like a Garden of Eden. Now, that doesn't mean that we believe the biblical stories as gospel per se, but that was getting me to think about, well, what do you mean when you say, I don't take that as gospel? Well, gospel literally means good news. But when we look to the gospels themselves, we find that they're riddled with basically revisions. Our history is riddled with revisions. It's just part of what goes on here, and it's very, very Orwellian. If you remember the movie 1984, it's showing them make the history every single day. And that's exactly what happens. They look at something, they say, well, this doesn't go along with the official narrative. How do we change this? Well, let's get it to fit with the science.
Yes, this is like a common theme for them. It's what they do. It's what they're good at. So that's why we have to get better at stepping back from their system so that we're not supporting it.
Absolutely. So did Powder Mountain, Utah just get one of its biggest snow dumps of the season on June 20th? Absolutely. So this is, again, part of the yin and the yang of things, is that we have extremes everywhere we look. So you see the top 10 biggest 24-hour snow dumps at Pow Mau last season, and you see a couple of 15-inchers. And this one may crack the top 10 storms of last year, and it's on the 20th of June. So we do have absolutely extreme, we have everything in the extremes on this planet, and the weather is just one of those things. And again, the weather, when you look up and you realize that there are tens of thousands of satellites up there, we don't even know what all of them are doing. And then there's things like the white and black night satellites that are satellites probably of leftover ages. Perhaps those are Atlantean satellites. They very well could be. They either put there by Anunnaki or Atlanteans. And what are they doing? Are they still doing something? Well, this is showing you the total snow mass for in the northern hemisphere, excluding mountains, the little red dots, is for the winter of 2021 through 2022. So you could see quite a peak, quite above the gray zone, which is the average between 82 and 2012. So that would make you think that we're building snow with all these crazy high temps. And we've shared, we got 5 days over 100 actual temp in the area between Dallas and Texarkana. And lots of people are seeing abnormally high temperatures, but we're also seeing abnormally low temperatures. Do I think it's all the sun? No. And even if it is all the sun, does that mean it's all natural? No.
Oh, I know. That's the most important thing to remember is everything you see, keep in mind there's always going to be a slant of manipulation depending on how they need us to respond.
So let me just go along those lines for a moment. So they want you to just have in your head a connotation where, you're either going to think it's all greenhouse gases caused by carbon emissions or it's a natural cycle by the sun. And not that it can't be a combination of things that are not mentioned, such as high advanced technologies that can actually either drain energy from the sun or augment it. How about the technologies to control the energy of a planet itself? And again, we're looking at this scale that has been given to us by a Russian scientist, the Kardashev scale. It speaks about levels of technology based on how well a society can control and manipulate the energy of their planet. Next, control and manipulate the energy of their sun. Then control and manipulate the entire solar system, perhaps even being able to change the course of the solar system into a new area. And that might sound unbelievable, but think about it. Again, think of how much we have progressed that we know about in just like 400 years. And think about a society that's 10 million years ahead of us. What would they look like? Obviously, they would look like gods. We'd have no other word to describe them. They would be insanely powerful and magnificent, or terrifyingly scary, depending on, how they viewed humans.
Right. And for me, every time we talk about this, you wonder where's the proof in all this, but you really need not look any further than your good old Vatican and the Dyson sphere. That's that big ball that's in on the Vatican front lawn.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we have low temperature benchmarks toppled in Canada and the U.S. We have a low over on Pittsburgh, heavy snow on Mount Washington. EU crop yields are reduced. Well, no surprise there. If we do look for our temperature outlook into July, now this is from weatherchannel.com, which again, it's owned by one of those famous families. We could trace this back to the Red Shields as well. And we see the July temperature outlook. It doesn't mean that that's going to be what we see. This is what they're telling us they're expecting. But again, switches can be turned on that are unexpected, and others could be turned off as well. So it looks like for the center point of the country, it's going to be toasty, roasting way above average. We see northern Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and over into Illinois, Indiana, Southwest, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. It's going to be extremely toasty in July, but above average or around average, really, for about most of the country, besides really the southwest zone, which could be due to monsoonal rains. And here we go into August. We see the same thing, a little bit below average to near average in the southwest and in the Pacific Northwest. But otherwise, near average to a little bit above average for the rest of the country. And this is going into September. We see that, intense zone moves a little bit farther north. We'll have to see how it actually manifests. One thing we do know is the food situation on planet Earth is getting worse and worse and worse. And it really should not be a surprise.
No, it shouldn't. This has been going on for a long time. We've been talking about it for a long time. It's very, very unfortunate, but it's something that we have to face so we know what to do.
Food riot risks continue to soar worldwide as the head of Food Aid branch of the United Nations halved meal rations for refugees. They're getting halved. Again, this is on the way to crickets and mealworms is really what we're looking at while the elites dine on all the usual. On Monday, David Beasley, director of UN World Food Program, released a statement detailing the heartbreaking decision to cut food rations for refugees who rely on us for their survival. As global hunger soars way beyond resources available to feed all the families who desperately need WFP's help, we are being forced to make the heartbreaking decision to cut food rations for refugees that are again relying on them for their survival. Points out the WFP already significantly reduced rations across the operating areas, indicating cuts cuts up to 50%, are affecting 75% of all refugees supported by the WFP in Eastern Africa, including Ethiopia, Kenya, South Sudan, and Uganda. Severe funding constraints has forced the WFP to significantly reduce rations for refugees in Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger. And as you see, as these kids lined up to get something, well, yeah, maybe they could have saved some money if they actually carpooled on their way to all their meetings. You know, when we're talking about the WEF and all these other meetings that we've seen lately from all the top, quote unquote, leaders of this pathetic system on the planet, which really is in opposition to everything that is humane. Here we see, you know, they're talking about their donations, but it's the system. And we've talked about this. We've talked about the fact that still, even last year and into this year, there are farmers paid not to produce. It's insanity at the highest degree. And this is not compassionate. They make it look like they're compassionate, but they're not compassionate. The lockdown that we just saw over the last 2 years plus now, you know, that has created this situation to such a high degree. It is a perfect storm of many, many things going on. And without urgent new funds to support refugees, one of the world's most vulnerable and forgotten groups of people, many facing starvation will be forced to pay with their lives. It doesn't have to be this way. There never has to be anybody going hungry on this planet. The problem is the leadership themselves of the planet. And it will get to the point where enough people on the planet will realize this, and then that leadership will absolutely crumble.
Right. It's gonna take people having to point this out. And, you know, you look at these leaders and these controllers and how they lord over what they're doing as if they have a sense of pride. It's like, oh, wow, look how well I'm handling things. I just don't know how they look at themselves in the mirror every day.
Hundreds of millions of people around the globe are marching towards starvation. And when we look at when the Arab Spring came about, there's basically a graph here that's showing the intensity of the situation, and we're well above that. So, you know, will we see a global Arab Spring? I think that's inevitable. And here we go. As a reminder, Rockefeller Foundation President Rajiv Shah initiated the 6-month countdown to a massive immediate food crisis in April. And that at times with October, which is what we're getting from the guides. They have been saying again, when it comes to September, October, that's when things are going to be so apparent that everything's just going to shift to a new degree. And we always still will see, mostly on Evolutionary, as this is going to go up on EEARTS, but mostly on Evolutionary, I'll see somebody comment, and somebody commented. And I know they mean well, but it just shows the ignorance of this world when they say stuff like, well, you know, you're not supposed to talk to spirit guides. You know, you're not supposed to use tarot cards. You're not supposed to develop your intuition is really what they're saying. Because, you know, we're just supposed to trust the BIBLE and the powers that be. See what the world gets when you just trust the powers that be and when you allow yourself to be divided by dogma. This is where we need to throw cold water on that, because there's a lot of people that see what's going on, but then they're still so confined in one other box that is totally a box given to them by the elites, the controllers. And that's perfectly fine. If you keep thinking that Jesus is coming back to save this situation, you're going to be sadly disappointed, because he wasn't about coming and doing it for us. He was showing us how to change our consciousness so we could all transform the world. But they want you to wait for him because they know he's not coming back in that way. And so you won't do anything.
Think vibration. You know, a lot of people talk about the return of Christ. Think about Christ consciousness and raising of vibrations, and understand in that sense, yes, that type of thinking, believing, that type of ability to reach out and care and help your neighbor, that vibration is definitely coming back. And I think it's here, and it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. But one thing that really disturbs me is how many people think, they keep saying these other people with a certain color hat, they're in charge. Don't worry, they got this. Well, if they're in charge and they got this is kind of scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's again, this world is controlled by the adversary to humanity. Because again, it's not really humans at the top of the heap. So whether we want to just view them as fallen angels, demons, or extraterrestrials, interdimensionals that are just using Earth as a place to mine and to utilize all the natural resources, which include every being on the planet. That is, when you start looking at how can humans do this to humans, the answer is, at the top of the food chain, they're not humans. Just as you might get annoyed, you might try to shoo a fly out of a room, and then that fly gets you annoyed enough to where you just swat it. That's kind of how they view us. You only have to go back to the old texts, and listen to the stories of Enlil saying humans are too noisy. There's too many of them. Let's get rid of them and let's just start over. And basically, even though that might not have happened exactly like that, it gives you the energy behind it. When a farmer is forced to decide, what is he going to do? I can't feed my cows anymore. Well, the only thing I can do is cut my losses. So I'm going to have to cull the entire herd, take what money I could get, and then I'll start doing something else. And that's basically how they view, again, the planet. This is just a resource. And you and I, they view all of us as just a resource that they might as well utilize in one way or another if they're going to take a total loss. They know that we're heading out of the Kali Yuga. They're not going to be able to control us if things go along as naturally they were supposed to. So for them, it would be a total loss because humans would just move outside of their sphere of influence. This is why you see everything going on right now. They don't want a total loss. They want to keep as many humans to be usable, to be an asset for them as possible.
Right. They need just enough to take care of the things that they don't want to get their hands dirty with.
Absolutely. And this also extends into 4D. So this extends into even reincarnating into another control system, another control grid that they control. Because, Earth itself is going to be moving on up. So there was another statement by one of our regulars saying that they thought it was interesting that people think they're going to go straight to 5D instead of spending full time on 4D. Again, it's a choice to the individual soul, and if things are doing their normal things, we already exist on 4D every time we're sleeping and in between lives. That's where we are, 4D, nothing new. So we are on 4D. Now, depending on where our personal vibrations are, we could be towards the lower end, towards the middle, or towards the upper end. That depends on the individual. And that can change over time. That's why they give us these nonstop wars. Because things like the horrors of war, the horror of being faced with starvation, or with these horrible diseases and pestilence, all this fear lowers our vibration. That keeps us down where they live. That keeps us in their home turf. When our vibes go higher, if you're ever in any sort of group setting where everybody is vibing so high, truly, there's nothing but love going on. Maybe there's music and merriment and healthy foods being shared and just a sense of community and positivity. They just can't grab onto your toes to keep you down when you start vibing that high. And you just kind of start to shift to where they're going to be looking like, they're heading out of here. We can't have this.
Right. And it's, the importance of the meditations, importance of mantras. This is really, really, really good for you to get your vibrations up, because it's not during that meditation time where the magic happens. It's after. It's putting that time into yourself to keep you out of their reach. Because so many people are right now, they're focused on, oh my gosh, my children, my pets, how am I going to feed everything? Well, if you're doing your spiritual practice, all of that falls into place, and then you can just do what you do and be a being of love and light.
Absolutely. So this says the EU says Russian food and fertilizers are free from sanctions. These products can be bought freely, transferred, and insured, Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell says. And when we look at the situation in the Ukraine, I know a lot of you guys recognize right off the bat, this is not just a coincidence that this happens in the breadbasket of Eastern Europe. There's a reason. And also, this is where most of those people in Africa are counting on their food to come from down to them. And this happens just at the exact same time that we have everything else going on. This little highlighted quote I highlighted, I have to warn again about the risk of a great famine in the world, especially in Africa. And it's the war which is creating price increases and scarcity on energy and food. We are supporting United Nations efforts to deblock the export from Ukraine. This is again Borrell speaking. This is when you see that when we look to 46, what does he want to do? He just wants to send more weapons. More weapons. I don't see an ounce of compassion I don't even see a soul, honestly. When I look at him, he looks to me like just a ragdoll puppet. There's nothing in there really of humanity anymore. Can you guys see that?
You know, I always see shark eyes when I look at him. Just that blankness. It really gives you the chills.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, sweltering streets, hundreds of homeless people are dying in extreme heat, and this is in Phoenix. And Phoenix is terrifying when there is no AC, and it's June, July, August, September. That's not a place that's going to be easy to survive if you're homeless or if the grid goes down. And everything we see right now, let me just shift this. Everything we see right now is pointing to the water crisis getting worse at a certain level. And this is talking about the water crisis on the Colorado River, which we've been talking about. Lake Mead's at 28%. Lake Powell is depleted as well. When it gets down to a certain point, you're not going to get electricity being produced. And again, to me, that is just, can you imagine that crisis in Vegas to Phoenix if there was no water to come from these places, or to such a low extent that people aren't bathing because they're just saving it for drinking water. And then of course they can't water their gardens. Now people that are watering their lawns, I've always looked at that as being kind of extravagant. I understand the desire for greenness in the middle of the desert. We live that, and Cindy's used to live in that. But when we're in the times that we're in, it's going to be all about growing food. And then, that's not going to be feasible. Because, again, who's controlling the situation? There's technology that can control this situation. We've seen all the declassified documents. Of course. China even says it's going to completely control the weather by 2025. There's that date again. And they're always seeding clouds and utilizing technology. So, do we expect it to get any better out west? I don't think you should. I think, again, you should prepare for the worst and keep putting the positive vibes out for the best. But no, again, everything that mom wants to do, Mother Nature, they're being counteracted by the control grid.
Mm-hmm. And what's really disturbing about the desert is even if you do rain catchment, there's so few inches of rain every year. But I'm thinking if you did get rain barrels or something of that nature, you could fill them up now while there is some running water.
Absolutely. Now, where we are, we're in dry conditions. It's been abnormally dry, and we noticed that. But it's not, drought conditions yet. But there is drought conditions along the coast down through Houston and down into Louisiana even. And of course, the western side of Texas is in very bad drought conditions. As we see here, all planned in script, right? And this is talking about potato farming and what's happened. It's tragic, and we don't see, as they're dumping enough potatoes to probably feed an entire African country in a ditch, and they're covering them up. And again, this Montana and Idaho, great potato producing areas. What happened was the lockdown caused all sorts of issues. Local potato farmers were hit hard by a virus. When you have the whole supply chain just falling apart and nothing moving for a long period of time, if those potatoes are sitting in a spot, you're going to definitely have rodents after them. You're going to have the conditions where mold and mildew could start growing on them. The prevention of trying to protect people against the plague on the land by far is going to cause more loss of life than the plague upon the land. And again, I think a lot of people are waking up to that. And I'm not even talking about the cure. I'm just talking about everything else, supply chain. It already has ruined tremendous amount of people's lives, taking away small businesses and even medium-sized businesses. And here we see ExxonMobil boss saying that the oil problem could last 5 years. It's going to last until they get their complete switch over in place. That's pretty obvious because this is the time of the big switch.
Yeah, it's just, we just really have to help support each other.
And then, of course, we have all this going on. They need the conflict. It's a big part of why everything is happening. Without this quote-unquote conflict, and again, there's so much that's an illusion going on. That doesn't mean that people aren't suffering. Absolutely, they're suffering. And that doesn't mean that we couldn't end up with a WW3. That's been on the plans for a long time. It's just this symphony of destruction is, how could this possibly be done without complete orchestration?
I know it's a pretty big organized mess.
So again, they're going to go to rationing in Germany, and they're going back to coal, and other countries will be joining them. You're going to see more of this travel chaos. Now remember, what was one of the biggest dates for men involved the people that actually take the planes from point A to point B. There's a shortage of those people. I wonder why. There's going to be a lot more shortages because, again, that was one of those biggest dates for men. And, flights are getting canceled left and right. They're saying they cannot hire enough people to fill up demand. As people, went through a period of not being able to enjoy their lives and do things and get around. And one of our friends was down in Jamaica sending photos, and God, it looked so good. Why couldn't I be stuck in Jamaica when it was the end of the world, But hey, we'll see what happens here. And it's not the end of the world. It's the end of the age, though. But we still got a ways to go at the same time. 20,000 flights canceled or delayed. This is going to be nothing new. Perfect storm for airlines? Of course, because, again, this all was triggered with what was pre-planned and also pre-gamed in event number 201, just 2 months before it all happened. High oil prices, lack of people to actually move people from point A to point B in the sky. Now, me personally, I wouldn't fly now. I would not fly now. There's too much of that sad thing going on.
Right, too much of that strangeness going on where you never know what might happen to your pilot.
Exactly. And at this time, California decides it's a great time to raise the state gasoline tax.
Of course they do. Yes.
It is one of the most beautiful states in the nation, but yet it's a state that people are moving out in droves. And you see this talking about the urban exodus that began during the pandemic, shows no signs of slowing down. And really, as far as urban centers, more people are leaving San Fran than anywhere. San Francisco is just, I mean, proportionately, people are vacating out of there. New York City, ravaged by population losses, jumping to the 5th fastest declining city in the nation in terms of population. 6.9% of the population reportedly fled between 2020 and 2021. 1 year, 6.9% of the people saw the writing on the wall. And Newark, Jersey City lost more than 385,000 people. The population loss in 2021 was about 6 times the size of its loss in 2019. So that shows you, obviously, a lot of people said, oof, if this happens again, I don't think I want to be here. And here we see 5 major cities that are on track to break their 2021 homicide totals. Yeah, there is... It's just in line. Again, the craziness is going to keep continuing. Crime is at record rates. I remember the crime in the 70s, and it was really, really bad. But now we're going to just leave all that in the dust because of a lot of desperate people, and then a lot of people that look at things, unfortunately, as a time to take advantage of others. I was looking at a video where there was this elderly man sitting in a car, and a group of like 50 people were just beating on his car for no apparent reason, jumping on it, bouncing on it, denting it, kicking it. What's wrong with you people? What is wrong with them? I mean, well, part of it is they don't even understand that their choices in lifestyle, what they put into their mouths, what they put into their bodies, what they surround themselves with energetically, are leaving them open to be open vessels for chaos.
Mm-hmm. A lot of those foods that people eat that are processed, they really are. They're like opening portals in your body to allow other energies to come in and sort of take charge.
Yeah, so LA, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Milwaukee, and Atlanta all surpassed the rates reached at the same time in 2021. Milwaukee has been a city with the largest spike, 96 homicides as of June 17th. That's a 25% increase compared to its 77 figure recorded this time last year. In D.C., there's already been 93 homicides compared to 82 in the first 6 months of 2021. And same thing with, the other cities. I saw where in a 3-day period, it was like 60 people were shot in Chicago in just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. It's like going into the Ukraine. It's like a war zone. It's insane what we are seeing going on. Again, there's a reason why you don't want to be in the cities in this time, because this is just the beginning of that. And that's not fear mongering. That's just telling you a fact. You don't want to be caught up in a place that has 1 million people in the metro or more. It's not going to be pretty for the most part. You're going to have a lot of people taking advantage of the chaos. And of course, that's going to make it very hard to grow spiritually, protect your family, grow your own food. Again, you want more of a suburban place. It's just going to be easier overall. And things are not going back to the old normal. The old normal's gone forever, and that's something people really need to, grasp. As we've talked to some family members that still, some might hold out a little hope that, hey, this is just going to be a blip. Things will go back to normal maybe for another 5 years or so, and then, then I'll get out, and then I'll go by that perfect place somewhere in the mountains on that, a nice pretty stream going by. It's the time is already past, but you could still make good moves now if, again, to get yourself out of the storm, because the storm is just building.
Or at least prepare yourself
as best as possible. And spirals of blue light in New Zealand night sky leave stargazers kind of freaking out. Again, they equate this with SpaceX and their rockets. There was another article that was talking about how the U.S. wants to use SpaceX to, basically augment its space force. We'll see how all that develops. As we know, a lot of you guys get it. I see a lot of comments saying, yeah, Elon, he's already the ruler of Mars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And we have an epic alignment of 5 planets and the moon to peak just after the summer solstice. So when you look up into the sky, now this is on June 24th, you see Mercury, Venus, Moon, and it'll be a crescent moon, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So we won't see this again until 2040, and 2040 it won't be as good and sharp of an alignment. And, look at how they are aligned there. That's pretty cool. That's a lot of energy in one spot.
That's a ton of energy in one spot, and it's actually a really good time. If there's anything a planet might be able to do for you, you can go out there and ask them all at the same time now.
So, we're going to start to plant a lot more stuff from scratch right now. Now, where we are, you're kind of in the grow season time, but yet I'm feeling a strong urge from the guides to get a lot more growing now. And then come around the end of August, we'll be doing our, and first week of September, we'll be doing more of our wintry, fall garden type stuff when, looking forward to more cool times. But I'm getting from the guides that we haven't done enough. And I'm getting that strongly, like we need to, get some more organic soil, get things, even though it's summer, we want to have things covered in different areas, so to speak. So, we did get some damage to our tomatoes and peppers, which were doing so fabulously. So those need to be replaced immediately. We need to have backup to the backup. So this is something that we need to get used to too. Always have more that are going to be coming out. And my next big thing, we replaced the floor in the bedroom because the floor was disgusting. So I did put a new floor down. I ripped up the old carpeting, which was so unhealthy. And I did screen in the porch. There was a water leak in the roof, so I got to redo the roof section of that. And then I also have to get the porch ready for winter to utilize it through the winter. So I'm going to be building some sort of, I'm planning on just using the plastic that you use for greenhouses along with like 1x4s to make frames and to put in place over the screen to hold some of the heat in. And we do have some heaters we can use out there as well when it gets really cold. Again, we drop down below freezing, maybe 20 to 30 times. But we're going to have to probably also build another greenhouse on the southern wall of the house to house our stuff that's a little bit more tropical as well. So, moving forward, there's an awful lot of work to be done. And I hope everybody has got everything laid out in plans themselves. Do, again, check out some of the channels like Roots and Refuge, like the Holler Homestead, like Sow the Land. So many people out there. I was pleasantly surprised to see some homesteaders like the ones up in Missouri, Doug and Stacy. Oh, they're awake now. They are totally awake now, and they're talking like it's coming out of these channels. And, with talking about getting ready for the chaos that's already here and coming. So, they went from being just a simple homesteading channel to everybody needs to prepare for this perfect storm.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's just so much to do. And it's like, oh my gosh, I only have this much time. It's so much to do. You really need to think about prioritizing. And how do you prioritize when everything is, going to need to be done all at once? Follow your instincts. Just follow the instincts, and you sit with yourself, you get quiet, and allow that information to rise to the top, because that's coming from higher self. Higher self is going to allow you to prioritize, but I really, really urge people to follow their instincts right now.
Absolutely. So as always, guys, much love out there. We're with you. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.